Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 19 of the Million Dollar Ideas podcast. Hi, Ken. How are you doing? What's happening? End of the year.
Good, yeah. I'm enjoying the cooler weather in Bangkok. And
Really? Does it get cooler? Marginally, right? Or in parts of Thailand, I'm sure it gets cooler, though.
yeah, up north it really is. Like you got to put like a light jacket on in the evening. That's why we go up there every year pretty much. I love it. But even in Bangkok, like it's more comfortable this week. And
Yeah.
I think school stopped, so the roads are emptier and it feels cooler.
Yes. And up north is like Chiang Mai and stuff like that, or?
Yeah, Chiang Mai. I really love Chiang Rai. There's
Right.
a park called
Yeah.
Singa Park with the beer company, and it's just gorgeous.
Right.
So we go up there once a year.
Nice. No traveling for me this year, but yeah, we have lots of family coming in next week, so it's going to be a good time. Usually at this point of the year, we all sort of like head over to Pakistan, but this year lots of people are coming to Dubai. I I read some ridiculous number about the people who are just flying in just for this holiday season in Dubai, like for the next 10, 15 days. And it was astronomical. I heard a stat, which is like there is a big mall in Dubai called Dubai Mall. It's like one of the largest malls in the world. And it had footfall traffic of 83 million people that went through it.
Wow. What's the name of the holiday for them?
There's no holiday period right now. It's basically just New Year's, and they sort of like the entire, where that really tall building is, Burj Khalifa and things like that, sort of like light it up, and there's lots of stuff over there. This is also the nicest time of year for Dubai generally from a weather point of view. Like the weather these days is like 23, 24 with lows in the evening, like 16, 15. So it's near perfect, not too cold, not too hot sort of like weather.
Nice. Yeah. By the way, the Mr. Beast filmed something on that building, no? The tallest building.
Yeah, I think he has a video on that building too.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Cool. So with end of year, I always thought that we could do a reflection sort of like video on this one instead of just talking about ideas or startups. Like perhaps this will get people to get us know us better, and for us also just to kick back and see like how was 2024 for you. So if you could give 2024 a theme, what would the theme be for you?
The theme would be going all in on being an entrepreneur for me. Like in 21, I started contracting in 22, was still contracting for a lot of 23. But 24 was where I really said, all right, like I'm not just contracting until I get another job or something. Like I really enjoy this and I'm going to create my own business besides just, selling my time. And I think like I'm seeing ingredients that are saying, all right, that's the right choice because more of my friends are laid off and they're like, you just start to like, you apply a different mindset. And I think that's starting with me is where like, you think, all right, like running your own business is amazing. Everything compounds, it's hard, but everything you put in, you enjoy and it compounds over time. Whereas when you invest a lot of your time and resources into someone else's business, nothing compounds. So that's more like that mindset shift has happened for me in 24.
Nice. Yeah, so we got to know each other mid 23, and yeah, I've seen the shift in 24. The ideas we've been discussing, we've tried out a lot of stuff, and it's been fun. I think having counterpart who is on this journey and then testing out a whole bunch of stuff to see what sticks, what doesn't stick, but when you say like you went all in, was there something at the start of the year, like you mentioned the compounding, but was there, I know that there's one opportunity that you're super excited about. Like, did that give you the confidence to go all in? Or was it just like I think I've done enough reps and I can do this sort of like thing?
I think it was a combination of a couple things. One is the stock market lifted, right? And that has like an important cycle because I'm heavily invested in the stock market. So like that all of a sudden takes like gives you some cushion. You're like, all right, like even if I don't make X, whatever, like it's fine. So I think that was one thing that in 24 really kind of like said, all right, like I'm really just gonna go hard at this. And then the other thing was that because of that kind of like lift off the shoulder, I said, all right, I'm okay with doing things that don't, necessarily pay off right away. Right. I'm gonna invest into some themes. And then I think 24 is where the other thing is I said, all right, there's a couple themes that I'm highly passionate about. And so I'm just going to take the approach that these two things that I'm highly passionate about, I'm going to work on building a business for them. And I think, and then I'm almost going to like tune out that it's going to be painful sometimes and stuff. And so that's, I think, like the thing that did it for me 24 is like took some pressure off because the stock market lifted. And, I took this approach where I'm like just doing the stuff I'm passionate about.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. The stock market has definitely been great this year, both the actual stock market and the crypto markets. Uh, Last night or whenever we're recording this, Bitcoin hit a new all-time high, and there just seems to be a lot of exuberance. But I think it's important for a lot of people to do you think if the stock market didn't lift, like that cushion is required, right? Like I think as we get more responsibility in life, you sort of like need some degree of cushion, whether you get it from savings or you get it from being invested in the markets.
Yeah, exactly. And I know that the way that I look at every year is kind of like income plus investment income equals your net worth increase, or, I'm okay even if it stays flat, but it shouldn't decline. And like there were a year or two where like it flat out declined. So that's where it's psychologically for me is because the more that like the investment income increases, then you're just like, all right, like I have room to be flexible here.
Nice. Well, it's definitely exciting. It was exciting to see, you go all in and get all of that sort of like working for yourself. I think for myself, the theme would be probably going deep versus anything else. I think this year, so as a structure of HOV is there are several ventures, therefore I can't really go too deep into any one venture where there's really the founder or the operator who really goes deep. And in two opportunities this year, managed to sort of like go deep. One was where we initially started to work on together, which was building software in the accounting space and sort of like raised a fund on the side to do these accounting sort of like roll ups. And private equity was something which was brand new to me, sort of like raising money to buy these profitable sort of like businesses and then really understanding how to value that business, how to go into the numbers, like how to see like how much money are they truly making on a customer basis. And I think that parlayed into another venture in the Philippines that I'm really excited about in the gaming space, where we also went super deep. And so in these two sort of like projects, I just felt like compared to several of the years before where I was just like on the top, maybe providing some degree of strategy advice or some things, like I was able to go deeper. And that made me for the better because I think like when you start understanding things from a unit basis, and a lot of people talk about the importance of unit economics, but actually I never really got it. Like I sort of like, yes, per user, how much are you getting? But when you start going as deep, like from a SaaS product, like here's the revenue that you're getting average from a user. What are all the costs? And so something like infrastructure cost, like, which scales considerably when you have this, and this play, it requires a lot of storage. So our infrastructure cost goes up as we get more things, really understanding how much that cost line was and stuff like that really made a difference. So I think that's where I saw a level up this year in terms of just being perhaps a little better operator as well. So, all right. So, um, you want to talk about some of the ideas that we're excited about for next year, or the high points of the year for yourself, and we can talk about some of these businesses that and ideas that we mentioned, so that the audience can get an idea as to what we're working on outside of MDI as well.
So I've had this one client where I'm almost still sort of contracting, but I also had the opportunity to apply my beast method, um, and was given a lot of free range to kind of like reorganize the company according to it. And I think it's been a great experience. Like it's a really good team, and like they more or less like a remote first company. But I think it's been very rewarding for me to see my philosophies work and scale, right? So, you know, really good communication, but mostly everything is through this ClickUp and making tasks. And, I've never seen them, and yeah, we communicate really well and get stuff done. So I think one high point for me was like, okay, there was a system that I've been kind of fine tuning over the last few years, and I had my ability to implement it, and like there's the full time team, and then I brought in a lot of freelancers using these kind of philosophies that I have on just bringing freelancers when you need them. So that's been a very rewarding
Right.
thing.
Yeah. I think
You know.
having implemented, so given that we also run primarily remote first, I've lots of the company has moved over to ClickUp since we started to work together, and it's definitely made a difference in the team. Perhaps one of the lower points of this year was, for me, the amount of layoffs as a result of transparency and streamlining operations that happen. Once we started working together, I saw the way that you were operating and transparency across the board. It's sort of like, and we started implementing that across several companies. And that's when I noticed that I thought I had done a pretty decent job, sort of like streamlining stuff in 23 when we spun out a lot of our people as agencies in HOB. But there were still a lot of people at the company that were not performing at the level that they should have, could have performed. And that became clearly apparent. So for people who are wondering about the Beast method, it's, if I was to just say again, like from what I understand from the Beast method, is that you have this high level sort of like system where you put everything as a task. So I think if there's a tagline for your system, it's everything is a task. So generally, when you're working at something at the company, you create a task for it. And then the common thread becomes like the history as to what's happening and why you're doing it, and you fill up the card in a certain way. But I think, like, if everything is a task is the atomic unit of the Beast method, I think, like, on top of that, it also forces leadership to be very clear as to where are we going, what are we wanting to do, what are the key objectives. So if I take the things that I mentioned earlier, such as unit economics, uh, I could now go and tell someone who's responsible for infrastructure and say that, hey, your percentage of infrastructure cost to revenue is X, and I need it to be, X divided by 4 in 12 months. And then I want you to come up with things that will do this. And then he creates tasks for it. And then he creates a lower task below that. And then everything starts to sort of like line up. And now he has clear line of sight. I have clear line of sight what he's doing, when he's doing it, and stuff like that. And it's really sort of like helped bring clarity on on the granular level, because I think most leaders sort of like set the, hey guys, this is the 2024, 25 is coming. Here are the goals for the year. Here's how to get it done, or here's what I would like to get done. And then people generally set up their projects and we've used Basecamp and Asana and the thing where they try to structure it, but it's actually very difficult to see like what people get done then.
Yeah, totally. And I would say that there's three rules that I would say are key. One is everything is a task. Two is any work that is done is represented as an update to a task, right? So if you work on anything, you either make a comment or a status update or whatever. And the third is the entire team needs to keep their entire ClickUp inbox clean, which means that there's fast response time and iteration. But I think like when you see this, and I was used to the old way for a long time, you like people are so nebulous when they give tasks. Like a manager giving tasks, like they say a lot of things, but they don't really know like what that person decided to prioritize, what approach they took, what they decided to do today versus tomorrow. And when you start having transparency into that, you start seeing how inefficient that is. And I would say like the Beast method is about making all of that transparent, and it forces you to prioritize. So you as a manager know that this person has these 5 tasks. You can open them, read exactly what the scope is, and you see which of those tasks they updated today, what they did. So it's yeah.
I think one of the things that I'm most excited about in 2025 are AI agents for sure. And there's this company that I checked out yesterday. We'll link it. It's called Human Layer. Uh, and these are AI agents that are being given specific instructions as to what to do. And just like any teammate, now you give them some tasks, they go about, start doing it. And only when they get stuck or they have an output which they require feedback on, they ping you on Slack or things like that. I don't see any reason why it can't be connected to ClickUp. They have a full API which can get this done. And just like what you said, like when they're doing the work, they'll update it and then you can give them feedback. And based on the feedback, they redo the tasks if it's not done correctly. And I think like this changes a lot of things because one of the parts about scaling companies has always been this need to add people to do certain tasks. And then the methods that we currently use, which is contractors or freelancers or even full time staff, like finding them, figuring out whether they can do the work, getting them up to speed, and then getting through the cycle takes time. And I think like if we could have a method which accelerates the velocity of that, teams will generally start to do far more, far quicker. And I think that's like one of the huge opportunities I see in the year ahead.
Yeah, I I agree. And one thing that's changed the way I think about this a lot is I watch a lot of these videos about Tesla and like what they're doing with Optimus, the AI robot, and what they're doing with self-driving cars. And like self-driving cars, like there's often like a person who's also often can take over, like if they need to. And with Optimus, when they were testing it, like someone was following Optimus and could help. So I see the parallel in this whole agent stuff, because when I think about when I use contractors still today, like there's no agent that I see that could completely replace them in the things that I'm asking it. There would be nuances and things they couldn't do and things they would interpret correctly. So I like thinking more and more, especially with this task based model, about all right, like there's a base AI agent and then there's a human tracking it and correcting it, and that is maybe the model for
Yeah.
these years where as the AI gets better.
I think so. I think like if you have, because all of us tend to find one, two, three, five, 10. Let's not be overly exaggerated. Most companies are run by a small handful of people who make pretty much all the heavy lifting and then everyone supports and stuff like that. So if companies are already made up of this 80-20 principle about like how companies are structured, then if you can find those out of 100 people, the 20 people which truly generate 80% of the alpha, and then you can then provide them with these agents to do base level tasks, and then they can have faster iteration loops. I think the fundamental way as to how a company is structured also changes. And it removes this barrier So one of the beefs that I've had with is the consulting companies for a long time, and I've been writing about them. But recently, I started to do far more frontal sort of like attacks through LinkedIn on them. And you know, uh, whether it's Accenture, which is slightly different from how they are, but McKinsey, Bain, BCG, and then the Big Four, which are far larger, hundreds of thousands of people work at these companies. Like I don't understand why anymore, other than clearly from a we had these people to do billable hours with our clients, and that's how this gets done. But I'm pretty sure this breaks in the coming years ahead, where I don't think that you need to add additional units of labor to do that. So yeah, how do you think, like having worked in consulting and stuff like that yourself, like what do you think about the model itself and with this new way of working and opportunities?
Yeah, I think the model is definitely going to have to evolve and become smaller.
Right.
And I think the way I see things moving is a lot like what all these founders are concluding with founder mode. Like you can agree, disagree with founder mode, but like I see it as similar to what the things I'm concluding is that a smaller set of smart people that run the company or whatever with good systems and agents and whatnot, like they can make the majority of the important strategic decisions themselves, right? And then but they have good systems that everybody's like feeding up and feeding back and doing the execution. And if you do that, your decisions more strategically aligned and like whatnot, right? And it's far more efficient. And I think when you apply that to like larger corporations that are using these type of consulting firms, I just don't see the need. I don't need a whole bunch more brains out there without any context on the company working on this problem. Like I'd much rather like, like more agents and other things just feeding me data so that I'm making the decision and I have a lot more context. So I think the model is going to be more reflective of that. Because I was in those, like last point on that is like I was in those consulting teams and I saw how 23-year-old kids who have no context on the industry and are billing still at crazy rates. And today's world is just like why like that person has nothing that is like AI and other things cannot provide.
Exactly. I think it's an uncomfortable truth, right? It's a truth which the industry knew from a very long time. People side by side, I've seen and I've heard verbatim what you just said. Like I've been sent in to talk to a CEO of a very large company to talk about his or her business. And I'm 24, 25 years old. And all I have is perhaps a model or a framework through which to evaluate the business by, which provides crutches to a certain degree, which can get you somewhere. I mean, you still have to bill out at those rates, but I think the part that you mentioned about context is the most critical piece because I think like that's why I think senior partners are being called in so much more now because the clients are like, please don't send that 25-year-old to tell me how to run my business right now. What's your report find? I want to talk to a partner who then will have cross industry experience, context as to what's happening. The first part that I mentioned about unit economics and things like they will know because they fundamentally covered this industry, understand how these businesses work on a deeper level. And I still think that they provide value, especially those partners. Like, undoubtedly, I don't have a problem with the the senior partners who have been in the space and who know how to do their job really well. I only have a problem with the structure, and I think that spills over. I was having a conversation where this spills over to large ad agencies and any other sort of like structured way where you're just pushing billable hours and not pushing for results as much. All right. So in this last segment, I thought we could do stuff that we are excited about for in 2025? Could be an idea, it could be new tech or anything. Like, what comes top of mind for you?
So we started this business called Revive, and it is basically my 10-year dental journey. I call it dental, but it's more like biomechanics. But basically, something happened to me in 14 that led me to some conclusions that the way your teeth come together are very important, not just to dental stuff, but to your skull, your spine, your health, your longevity, you know, lots of things. So I started a business around this, started out like blogging, and that's working well. And yeah, it's got me excited because first it's working, right? So it's great when like you started a bunch of things that didn't work and you see one that's working. But also like all these mantras of people that are successful entrepreneurs, like you start to really understand what they're talking about, right? Like, would you rather invest time into someone else's business when you could make almost the same amount in your own and it'll compound and you're doing something you love? And I'm really excited about this business, and I'm really excited because it's something I'm passionate about, and like I could see it becoming the topic that I focus on for many years. So that's for me new. You know, like I've started businesses in the past and, like sometimes they did okay for a little while, but nothing really scaled. And I think the potential on this is big.
Yeah. No, I've seen that in your attitude and outlook and how things are working. But I think like the one thing with Revive, which really tipped the scales to me was that when we launched and people got the product and then people entered the community and then the feedback loop from actual customers, even though it's early days, I think for me that was the tipping point. When people talk about like getting close to that product market fit or whatever that appears, it always happens where the customer, you're close to the customer, you understand the customer sort of like problem, and then your hypothesis that several other customers, potential customers, have the same problem. And then when that starts to validate, like you said, it's still early days. You've been in this for a while. And, but I've been excited to see you sort of like tap into multiple channels, grow into that. Because for context for everyone else, Ken and I have done a bunch of stuff together before we got to this one. And I still think like all the failures that we've had with all the small stuff that we've tried in the past, which didn't fly, I think a lot of that gets compounded into this as well, whereby we're just taking off from where we left and where to pull which lever as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I like that, like I had this, I would say, view or knowledge that I would share for years and would be kind of ignored. But when you see like lots of other people experiencing the same thing, like you realize, wow, like why was I just trying to tell people before? Like it was so much easier to just get people to do it and be, like I have a whole bunch of people shouting behind me that it works. So that's one great thing. And yeah, what the other thing I'm really enjoying about the business is like you get a lot of business where people question like, okay, like the price, the value, blah blah blah. And here like the price compared to the value that these people get are like so far. Like the value is here and the price is here. And therefore, like the attitude that you get from these folks are so supportive. Like it's not about like, oh, you charge me X, whatever. And I love that element of the business. And I think that's something that's quite unique about being in this domain.
Yeah. No, that's cool. I think if we're talking about ideas that I'm excited about, so this year we sort of like launched a company called Opexa. It's actually a gaming platform company targeted towards the Philippines. Philippines has had some regulation changes over the last 2 years, which created this sort of like opportunity. And we managed with a local partner to get in very early into the space as one of the few regulated platform providers in the Philippines. So the site launched earlier this year, and we got our first couple of clients. And like you said, like when the clients sort of like came on, the first few ones, and then they saw success and the system sort of like scaled, I think that was really fun to watch. And I think like in most of these cases, in both of these cases, I think there are also trend lines, right? Like why now there's this growing sort of like problems, health problems are just out of control, whichever way you see it, like, and there are a lot of people wanting to ask different questions or questioning the way the pharma industry works and how they sort of like push stuff. Even in this, in Opexa's case, there's also a shift, a regulation shift. I think the why now sort of like question also becomes pretty important for a lot of businesses, because I'm sure both of us have launched businesses in the past, which which were good businesses, but perhaps the timing was not right, or something was off over there. And then those businesses never really get anywhere. So I think for people who are evaluating ideas, I think also having some sort of like wind behind your sails massively impacts the probability that you hit on something that actually starts to work.
Yeah, for sure. I've seen this with all my like when you're in like starting something that there's a lot of good people entrenched that have been doing it for a while. It's so much harder than if it's some new wind is picking up all the sails.
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, I
Yeah.
completely agree.
Yeah, I think like that's one of the things that I'm most excited about. I think generally across the businesses, AI agents continue to be top of mind for me right now. It's an area that I want to go much deeper in. And I think there are two things, which sounds like the total VC playbook right now, but it's like AI agents and then crypto. I think the other high point of this year for me has also been just validation or greater validation of the crypto sort of like pathway. I think like prior to 2020 COVID, when I used to tell people that we work fully remote at a substantial scale, everyone would completely doubt me and say, "Are you sure? How can you manage these many people fully remote?" And then COVID happened, and suddenly everyone was forced to do it, and they were like, this actually works." I feel like 24 still hasn't got that mass adoption yet. But I think like if in 25, governments around the world sort of like say like they're going to have crypto reserves of any shape and form, I feel like that's when it's either going to absolutely take off and get fully mainstream, which I still think like people think like these are just meme coins that are just going up and down. But I think like that's what I'm super excited to see as well, because if those two intersect, then you have the payment rails to pay for AI agents, and yeah, that just seems like a crazy new world to me, but one that I would love to see and connect with more people who are building for it, and yeah, see what else we can do to augment our own businesses to make them better.
Yeah, yeah. I was always a crypto skeptic, but
Yeah,
I've crossed the bridge and yeah, I invested some months back into some crypto ETFs in the US and they've done well and I see the long-term play and and especially I think Trump is like a fresh breath of fresh air for the
yeah.
crypto space.
I mean, yeah, I think like just on that thing, like I've heard that same story from multiple people that, hey, so, but also like other than Trump, I think David Sachs, who's also going in as the person who's leading this, is understands the space pretty deeply. And it will be interesting to see how they play this out. Uh, but congrats. I'm glad that you slowly are treading your way through that, through ETS and stuff like that. And yeah, all in all, I think 2024 was a good year, touch wood, in the sense that lots of things sort of like uh, came together. Like you said, there were like 22, and especially 22, I think, was like tough year, especially for people like us who are heavily invested in the tech side of the market. That was pretty down. I think like BTC was down to like 17, 18K. Also, it was like crazy times when you think about it, from where we are. So yeah. So
Yeah, and 24 for me became the year where this model of working really started. Like you saw where now you're pulling away. And what I mean is I have friends that they continued, and yeah, a lot of people got laid off in I guess 20, yeah, in the last couple of years, and a lot of people got laid off, and like a lot of those people are now on their second or third layoffs. And now they're starting to question, okay, like this future is starting to look pretty bleak. Like if I work really hard to get a job, and then often I don't end up liking it, and there's politics, and then they axe me 6 months later, and then that happens a couple times in a few years, that model starts to look very shitty, right? And whereas like, you know, I've been investing like my time more than like building my own business for 4 years now, and then it's gone through some hard times. But now like I'm just comfortable. Like I'm used to the way it works, and I just feel like I'm in a very different place from those folks that are thinking, oh my God, like I just been laid off the third time like since 21. What do I do? And that I think is something I think in 25, a lot of people are gonna start being like, okay, no, like this old way sucks. Like I gotta figure out how to make this new way work.
yeah. I mean, the old ways of breaking both on like also when you think about like the education front, like people are spending all of this money and they're not getting jobs anymore. Then even if they get jobs and they go through what you just said, which is happening across the board and across levels as well, it doesn't make a difference. Like if a company, like I posted the other day, I don't know why LinkedIn took my post off, but Calendly sort of like shed a whole bunch of people. And people were like, this is a company which is worth $3 billion. I'm pretty sure they can afford the 70 people that they let off. Why did they let them go? But if companies are becoming far more efficient in the way that, what we just spoke about and how they're operating, and they don't need as many people as they needed before, like you said, like some paradigm is shifting. It's not because we're $3 billion valuation, we need 5,000 people or 2,000 people. It's basically, I think we can get this stuff done in 300 people. And that's also breaking frames for people because I think that there's a sense of like, that's unfair. But I think the opportunity is open for everyone, like you're saying, to put in the time and actually take a shot at this because it's just plain economics. If a business starts to make a lot of profit with whatever it's doing, you can get into that space. And as we have seen in the Calendly space, there are like 100 competitors to Calendly now, and maybe all of them are not worth $3 billion. But if you can make two, three, four, $500,000 a year with a little tool that you built, which is vertically specialized to a certain segment, like that opportunity always existed. So it's a matter of like people, and now with Replit and everything, like it's becoming there are fewer excuses for people to complain about this versus actually getting something done.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think one thing that's happening in the background to some of this, because for me, the logic journey was we started working remote. Remote forced us to come up with these processes that worked much more transparently. We started seeing, because we were working more transparently, who's actually doing what and how work gets done in a more efficient way. Uh, and now when you go through that evolution, you realize, oh, well, like, so we don't need all these other people. And I think that's what I think is going to continue to happen, right? Like companies are going to get better at these systems that are more transparent. And they're going to see how little certain people do or how little value they add. And they're just going to get better at being more efficient about, what are the processes and people that actually create the value.
Yeah, cool, cool. Exciting times ahead. Well, this was a fun episode, slightly different again from the ones that we've done in the past, but it's been fun. We have one more episode we're shooting this year, and then we're gonna call it a year. But it's been cool. We'll end on episode 20, but I've enjoyed this and lots to be grateful for as well this year. So thanks, Ken, and I will speak to you soon. And yeah, all the best. So yeah.